Upstate New York in the mid-1800s was a hotbed of anti-slavery thought and activity. Harriet Tubman lived in Auburn. Frederick Douglass lived in Rochester. John Brown lived for a time in Lake Placid. And in 1835, the New York Anti-Slavery Society held its first meeting in a building in Peterborough between Syracuse and Utica. Today, that building houses the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum. And every year, the museum sponsors a video series about chapters in Black history, many of them set in upstate New York. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. claxtonhepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, February 27th. First up, a Colombian man accused of smuggling a migrant woman across the Canadian border in Clinton County has been extradited to the United States. The woman, a Mexican national, died after crossing the northern border. Her case drew sympathy from the local community about the dangers migrants face there. Kara Chapman reports.
Last summer, about a dozen people gathered for a ceremony near the Great Shazy River in Champlain. They put up a cross to honor a woman they'd never met named Ana Karen Vasquez Flores. Amy Mountcastle, who co-organized the ceremony, said Vasquez Flores was 33 years old and 5 months pregnant when she died after crossing the U.S.-Canada border.
She was seeking to join her husband and relatives in the United States. She was seeking a better life.
Federal authorities say that in December 2023, Vasquez Flores was smuggled across the Canadian border into northern Clinton County. Court documents say the alleged smuggler was 36-year-old Jader Augusto Uribe Tobar, a Colombian national who lives in Quebec. He allegedly guided Vasquez Flores by text across the border, then to the Great Shazy River. The documents say Uribe Tobar told Vasquez Flores she could wade across, but she was swept away and drowned. Her body was found a few days later after her husband reported her missing. The cross that honors Vasquez Flores stands on private property near where she entered the river. Alvaro Enciso, the Arizona-based artist who made the cross, told NCPR it honors both her and others who've died crossing the northern border.
And to the ones that haven't been found yet, because I think that some people died here, somewhere here, and the bodies are still there.
According to the International Organization for Migration's Missing Migrants Project, Vasquez Flores was among 8,600 known migrants who died worldwide in 2023. It was the deadliest year on record since the project began a decade ago. Vasquez Flores' crossing also coincided with a record-breaking year for illegal migration at the northern border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection data show agents logged almost 24,000 encounters, more than double the previous fiscal year. Uribe Tobar was extradited to the United States earlier this month and arraigned in Plattsburgh on smuggling charges. Janet McFetridge, a local volunteer who assists migrants, says she hopes for justice for Vasquez Flores, her unborn child, and their family.
I mean, the fact that unborn baby perished in the river, never had a chance. She never really had a chance, not knowing where she was, no phone, such a tragedy, and it didn't have to happen.
Uribe Tobar faces 3 years to life in prison if convicted. He's jailed pending a trial in Utica that's slated to begin in April. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
February is Black History Month. And for the last 5 years, the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum in central New York has been publishing dozens of YouTube videos in a series called Black History Matters. Victoria Basulto is the historian who produces the series. She says the museum's building is on what was the estate of Gerrit Smith, a slavery abolitionist who worked with Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and John Brown.
It's kind of a random location, right? But I think that's sort of what makes it appealing, is that it's in this part of New York State that people no longer attribute with sort of the abolitionist movement, but that in its time was really very much at the heart of it.
Now, Gerrit Smith, he was the one who sold land in the Adirondacks near Lake Placid to Black men so that they could be enfranchised so that they could have the right to vote that later became the community that's known as Timbuktu, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, this is also like a little known part of, kind of voting rights history as well in New York specifically. We recently did a video talking a little bit about how even though like Black men were technically allowed to vote in New York State after 1821, there was a requirement of $250, which in today's world would be like 6 million, like just an incredible amount of money that like obviously most people didn't really have the ability to meet that requirement. But part of what Garrett Smith was doing with selling some of this land was helping enfranchise Black men by giving them property, for people who were just coming out of slavery or had just found freedom in the North, give them a landing ground, right?
Let's talk about your series, Black History Matters. They're kind of like these podcasts with images that you have sort of moving through, and you're just telling these little episodes of history that we have not learned about for the most part in growing up in upstate New York in our history classes. How do you choose these episodes to talk about?
Yeah, it really depends, right? So I guess I could give a little bit of background as well. I grew up in Texas, and it's definitely not just an upstate New York or even the New York education system thing. It really is a national problem, I think. It excludes a lot of the histories of minority groups. So we really don't learn much about like Juneteenth, for example, which is a major part of our nation's history. There is no space in the curriculum. First of all, teachers are already very pressed with the time that they have to teach certain material. Plus, I think right now what we're seeing, and even in the past, there's a lot of contention about what is considered to be American history. So part of what this video series attempts to do is to illustrate that, well, Black American history is American history, Latino history is American history, Asian history is American history. Obviously, for Black History Month, we're focusing specifically on Black Americans. But the point is that Black Americans have had such a big part in the nation's history, not just through the sad stuff, right? Like the atrocities that we see, massacres, insurrections, revolts, but also through joyous moments, right? Like there was a lot of achievements that came through because of the efforts of Black individuals and Black organizations that we also want to highlight. It is a mixed bag, but I think it's important that we understand that multiple people with multiple demographics together have built this nation's history.
I was really interested in the episode that you had this year about the Freedom Journal, the first Black-owned newspaper in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in that as well because currently there's a lot of discussion too about freedom of the press. And I thought that it would be a really good, episode to focus on the ways that Black Americans have used print culture, but also the media to promote their specific causes. In this case, it was abolitionism. But throughout history, it's been a very important way of disseminating information and also creating networks of people, because I think sort of a theme that we have going on for this year's video series is networking. A lot of individuals didn't realize that there was another community. For example, this one in particular could have been like in Buffalo versus another one could have been in Utica. And then these newspapers, because of the way that they're disseminated, can illustrate to these individuals that there are other groups also doing similar work in different places. And so that's kind of the theme that I have found falling together in this specific February's video series, because it is important to demonstrate that, one, they were using print culture to rally people to promote abolition, but also to unite communities who were all fighting for the same cause.
Victoria Basulto is a historian who produces the Black History Matters online series for the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum in Peterborough, New York. Each episode tells a piece of Black history, often focusing on people and places in upstate New York. You can find a link to the Black History Matters series on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Patricia Julian of Burlington and Muskox of Ottawa. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.